Welcome to In Confidence, hosted by me, Rosie Downing. In this podcast series, I speak to people who've been on surprising, often bumpy rides in their quest for personal and professional confidence, and to the experts who can help you get there. It takes a special kind of confidence to walk away from a high-flying, glamorous job and reinvent yourself mid-career. My guest today is the journalist and novelist Rosie Nixon. You were editor-in-chief of Hello magazine for 16 years?
Yeah, editor and then editor. So editor and editor-in-chief for 16 years, yeah.
And it seems like the most glamorous job.
I mean, I look back and it was just the highlight of my career. It was at a time when there was a lot of power in print media. Obviously, a print magazine or a newspaper was the place that a big personality would turn to give their big exclusives. And at Hello, we were really telling the fairy tale stories of the rich, the famous, and the fabulous.
Yeah.
Every single week. So it certainly hit all the right notes for me in that sense.
Yeah.
Perhaps more so when I was more on the writing and the kind of editorial side, and less so as my job progressed. Sometimes we can just find ourselves on a career ladder, can't we? Where the goal seems to be, well, you haven't necessarily consciously outlined your goal, but there's a trajectory. And then actually, the higher that I got, the more removed I was from the storytelling.
You got further and further away from the why, the reason why you were doing it. It started to feel less fulfilling, less enjoyable. So what happened?
When you start to feel that your working life, or your life in general, is not gelling with your values and exactly who you are at this point in time, then it can be very destabilizing. And I think for me, it was a number of things coming into play. Obviously, I'd been doing a job for a very long time, which is one thing. The media world had changed and that had evolved, and it was less about gaining exclusives for the magazine, which was really my sort of the thing that I held most close to my heart. But, we were then available on all kinds of digital platforms as well, content being chopped up so that it could perform well. It's just a different way of operating. And I guess the kind of art of storytelling wasn't as important as it used to be. It's the same for the magazine. There was less money being made there. That all kind of contributed to me sort of losing the love for a job that I once had. There was also the responsibilities of life. I'm a mother of two children. Sometimes I think, once you get through those early years of the physicality of child rearing, it's almost as though parenting has just begun all over again when they're slightly older and they need you emotionally and your presence in a completely different way. And that I'd always wanted my children and my family to be my priority, and I felt that it wasn't anymore because I was being so pulled by my job. And I think hormonally as well, I was hitting my late 40s and I just wasn't coping very well. And it was one morning, the 5th of October, 2022, when I woke up in a hotel room after having hosted a big event for Hello the day before. And I just looked at my phone and it felt as though everything was going off at the same time. There were so many alerts, emails, scrolled across as I always did to social media, and that was similarly kind of explosive, probably because we just had this big event. I looked at my diary, it was another packed day, and I knew that it was going to be a real push to get the train that I wanted to get back so I could pick up a child from judo because I'd been away from home for 2 nights. And then I saw missed FaceTime calls from the boys from the night before that I hadn't even noticed because I'd been still out sort of entertaining. And I just wanted to throw my phone out of the window. I had this overwhelming urge to just never see it again. And the words that kept repeating in my head were just, I am done with this. I just cannot do it anymore.
What were you feeling in that hotel room?
Mm,
Because it's really interesting when you describe that. Your perfect day might be someone else's worst nightmare. So
yeah,
if you said there's someone living that life right now and looking at their
yeah,
phone and they're going, Yay! Oh my God, look at all
Well,
the
yeah, I
capable.
mean, I'd lived that life day after day and I'd always been like that and managed to cope with it. It's like I love a busy lifestyle, but I think when that busy lifestyle is not hitting your values, it very quickly becomes a stressful lifestyle.
So it's interesting that you said that you can explain it now with a clear head, but then you must have been in that hotel room quite confused by what was going on.
Yeah, it was just a feeling of extreme overwhelm. Everything felt overwhelming that normally wouldn't be to me. I just couldn't think straight. And I just sort of burst into tears, basically, and sobbed like I hadn't sobbed in a long time. Managed to call my husband, who was really great, who just sort of said, right, I think we need to get you signed off by a doctor and you need to just stop for a little bit because this is too much. This frenetic lifestyle is untenable and it's beginning to have a physical impact. Hearing somebody else say that to you and then subsequently a doctor say the same thing was really startling to me because
Was it?
I'd always been someone that could power through. But I knew it by that point. I had to concede because my body just simply wouldn't play ball anymore.
Your body was telling
Yeah,
you,
and that's what
yeah,
happens when you hit burnout. But I think, I wasn't probably in full burnout. I was headed in that direction. I know for lots of people, it can put them out of action for months. But it
yeah.
is a wake-up call.
And you're right. Sometimes you're not even you're not listening. You're not listening at all to what your
No.
body is telling you.
Yeah.
So it's whispering, but you're
Well,
not hearing
yeah, and
a
that
massive
little
shout.
voice
Yeah,
in your head that, to be honest, had been there for a long time saying, I don't know if this is working for you the same way that it was. And to actually acknowledge that that voice is there, but also that that's okay. Like you've just evolved as a person, you've grown up in this job, and now the things that are important to you in life have shifted slightly. And you've lost sight of the reason why you first got into this industry. And maybe there's a way to figure that out. And the world's not going to fall apart. You just perhaps need to do something different. But so much of my identity was tied into that role. A big part of me thought, but I don't know who I am if I'm not in this role anymore. And
yeah.
so that's really where the work had to begin.
So what did you do? How did you start to untangle yourself
Mm.
from it? What was your first next step from that hotel room?
So the first next step was to sign myself off work for a week, which again was I didn't even know how to go about it. What do I do? Like I just was in such a jumble. But I did end up having a few weeks off work, which was crucial from my physical well-being.
How did that
And
feel as well? Did that feel like,
really, really odd. I
yeah,
felt like the world would collapse if I wasn't there, sort of being a part of it somehow. But so it was a letting go process. And
yeah,
to be told in no uncertain terms by a doctor, you must come off your emails. It's going to be okay. You have to explain that you're not very well at the moment. You must step away from it for your own physical health. I mean, that
yeah.
was
Was there was
really
there
big to hear.
was there shame around that as well? Was there a worry that the people
Do
in
you
the
know
office,
what,
yeah,
Rosie? It's like, I wouldn't say so much shame. There was a sort of kind of uncertainty around it and what this would look like to the outside world, and that I wasn't as robust as I'd always wanted people to believe. But actually, if I'm totally honest, deep inside, there was a little bubble of excitement that something is happening now.
okay.
Yeah, that actually I have just got a minute now because it's all been verified and I've been told
Yes.
that I can, like, a sort of, been given permission to stop and just
Yes.
pause. And then I spent a lot of time during those weeks walking, getting outside into nature on my own, doing all the school drops and pickups and loving it. And then when they were at school, walking around the countryside near where I live, listening to all the podcasts on burnout. And I bought all the books, I've got loads of them here on burnout. And I tried to work through these feelings that I was having around my job and what was still fulfilling me, what wasn't. I turned to coaching as well. I had some sessions with a coach, which was really life-changing, I would say, and where we
In
dug
what
into my
way?
values.
What was useful about
Well,
it?
to have a space that is completely objective, and a person that's just there to ask the right questions to make you dig a bit deeper into your thoughts, um, because it takes time, and I'm very much a sort of doer and I like to know where I'm going. And so it was very destabilizing to think, oh God, I'm just in this no man's land.
Yeah.
Um,
I always think about it as being on amber, and sometimes we're afraid to be sitting at that orange light.
mm,
And should we go? Should we just stay a bit more till it's safe? And I always think that it's so important to be on amber,
yes.
especially if you are feeling stuck and you don't know which way to go. But it sounds like for you, a you needed the permission to stay on amber, and that coach almost gave you that thing.
Well, exactly. I think that's what I realized, that actually I was making by just, and you call it amber, as I call it, the pause, a chance to sort of
Yeah.
be in pause. And sometimes that pause needs to be for a decent period of time, just to look at sort of where am I at now? Where have I come from as well? And to actually give myself a bit of credit for the journey that I'd been on. Um, but to actually acknowledge that I, my strengths have evolved during that time, my interests have evolved, the things that are really important and my priorities in life have shifted slightly. I just wasn't the same person that started off in that role, and that was all right. And actually, that didn't mean that my whole world needed to fall apart, because my identity was so much more than my job.
Yeah.
And perhaps it was time to not let that define me anymore. I actually admitted to myself that I just didn't care about royal news, which felt like so naughty. Yeah. And that was such a massive part of my role at Hello. And I remember going, sort of finally having the confidence to actually just write down, don't like or can lose royal news. And
That's
it was
it.
so liberating. When I put it down, I was like, oh, the world hasn't fallen apart. My family is still at home. My like a thundercloud hasn't erupted over
Yeah,
my
I can
head.
imagine the headline though.
And I sort of wanted to shout it from the top of a hilltop then. I don't care anymore. And I cannot write another cover line about the Princess of Wales. It's not feeding me. And that's okay.
Yeah.
There's somebody else that will love to do that, just like I used to love it. It's like time for them to do that and me to do
Yes.
my thing.
Well, this is interesting, isn't it? Because with those columns, it seems like you were already, in a way, doing the things. You're very entrepreneurial you were
Yeah,
entrepreneurial in your role, and you were already doing the things that you're now doing
yeah,
for your life. So
yeah,
promoting kindness,
yeah.
inspiring women. You're still
Well,
doing
that's what helped
that.
me to shape what I wanted my next new working life to be. I think so often we try to fit ourselves into a new role, or we think, well, I'm going to look at vacancies and see what other things are out there, rather than starting with ourselves, which is always the best way to do it. Start with a deeper understanding of who you are and what's important to you and what brings you joy.
Yes.
Just reconnecting with things that make me really happy. What are the days when I want to jump out, I'll set my alarm early because I can't wait to get into work and do that thing? What are those? And then how can I build more, or in your wider life as well? What are the things I really love? Like I realize I do really love lovely hotels. What spa hotels, ideally. So how can I make that a part of my working life? Because that's just brings me a lot of joy. It
Absolutely.
sounds
Yes.
silly, but
No, it's
it is, rather than thinking, oh, but I'm a magazine editor, so maybe I just need to edit a different magazine. I was coming at it from a completely different angle. I knew I didn't need to just chase another title that would be different to the one that I'd edited, although one has come along which has felt perfect for me because it is in the space of luxury hotels
This
and
is
spa
the
life and
this is the
well-being.
magazine for
This is the
the
Corinthia London
Corinthia.
magazine, yeah, that I now
Exactly.
edit for the Corinthia London Hotel, which is just a lovely, it's a small project as part of a portfolio career that I now
Yeah.
enjoy. And again, the portfolio career, it became clear that actually I like having different things on the go. It makes me feel really alive and creatively engaged.
Yeah.
And actually, rather than having all of my status wrapped up in one job and one job title, having a few things where, so in a way, my status is sort of shared
Yes.
out. So if one's not going so well, well, it doesn't matter because it's going great over there. Or if that one doesn't work out, well, I don't, the stakes are not so high.
Yeah.
I can be much more flexible.
So I'm hearing that now, 2025, Rosie, but there must have been a moment where, you've got these three columns and you're still feeling quite lost. You think, okay, I know energetically where I'm headed.
Yeah.
How did you, how did you come to a decision about what to do next?
Just having time at home walking helped me to reconnect a bit with that excitement of the creative process that I had really missed. And I began to reconnect with just who I essentially am, without a job title defining me. So I then sort of had a very honest conversation with my boss, who is the owner, and I went back 3 days a week initially. And then I did this coaching course, thrived in that environment. There were 12 other people on my course. We were all met as strangers. We would all come to coaching for different reasons. I just so enjoyed every single kind of stage of that process. Just so that really called to me. And actually, during the course of doing this coaching training, I sort of coached myself out of my role at Hello and thought, I think this is what I want to do. And that's when I came up with the idea for, well, maybe I could look at creating something that I wish was there that maybe would have prevented me having that day in the hotel when it felt as though it was all crashing down at once, but start to normalize the concept that we're all just reinventing a lot of the time in different periods. We might, though, need a little bit of extra support to help navigate it. And coaching, I think, can be so valuable on that journey. It had to be a planned process. And there was lots of crossover time of building my own thing before I finally left Hello, because I can't just step out of one job with a mortgage to pay. And, it has to be really well planned. But that's how the idea for Rosie's reinvention retreat started to come together. And I thought aiming it at midlife women, which was the audience I loved speaking to,
Mhm.
and all my years working in magazines, was generally talking to midlife women. And by that, I mean sort of 30, 35 plus. And, I now sort of consider my breakdown, sort of in inverted commas, a breakthrough because it led the way to what now feels like a really fulfilling and exciting next chapter.
I've worked with you on one of your reinvention
Yes.
retreats. And I think it's really important that you've chosen the word reinvention.
It's about finding ways to make tweaks in your life that are going to lead to greater fulfillment and happiness.
Yeah.
And I loved that word. It really did call to me because I want to normalize the concept of reinvention because we're all really in a state of process and a state. I like now being in a state of reinvention. I'm not necessarily always fixed on having clearly defined end goals. I want to enjoy the process.
Yeah, so you're not even, it's not even like you're the finished article. Once you've reinvented yourself, you can do that as many times as you like.
Exactly. You can keep reinventing and realizing that that's actually a really normal part of life. When you hit midlife, your vision of success alters. And you need to be conscious of that. Otherwise, you are going to perhaps slip into burnout territory or exhaustion because we're just not physically cut out to keep striving at that same pace.
Yeah.
And I think the fact I was trying to compartmentalize also it was why I sort of crashed out so much. because I wasn't accepting that actually all elements of my life were out of sync.
So by taking ownership, what you're really doing is actually giving other people the opportunity to own their own story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And rewrite your story and realize that you can, and you can tell your brain that that story that it's been thinking of you for all of those years is maybe not true anymore. And that's the most powerful sort of place to get to, actually. And also to let, the story, like the story that I'd told myself for so long, that I was defined by my job and that was the main thing about me, and that's what everybody in the world thought. Well, actually, no, like I'm going to be defined by a story that I create, and this is the real me.
So what is next for Rosie's reinvention retreats?
Oh, well, I feel like we're just getting started. I mean, this has been a year, well, not even a year yet. We started last September with our first retreats. We do sort of roughly one a month. And there's still, I guess, the luxury product within what I envisage the brand developing into. We're working on a digital membership at the moment, because I'm very conscious that the retreats are sort of for 20 women at a time. And we do find that that is an optimal number, because there is a lot of sharing that goes on in that room. We all contract confidentiality. But generally, you come because you are at a bit of the crossroads in life and you need some extra support in areas. So I want there always to be the space to hold people and for them to feel that they can share in a completely trusted and safe environment. So there's only certain numbers that we can get around. So the digital membership will help others who live, in areas where it's hard for them to travel to a physical retreat, work through our reinvention program, which I call Reinvent Like a Pro. And the Pro stands for Pause, Reflect, Organize. So on the retreats, all of the sessions fall into the Pause, Reflect, or Organize category, and it will be the same for the digital program when that launches. And we'll also have some meetups each year as well, because it's so important to get a community together in person. Honestly, you can't replicate the magic that happens in a room when you're all actually there together.
Thank you so much, Rosie.
Oh, thank you, Rosie.
Aren't we lucky that you no longer have an interest in royal news? Or has that returned? Has that returned?
No. Don't ask me anything about the Princess of Wales after 2022, because that's where my knowledge ends.
What an interesting conversation about reinvention with Rosie Nixon. And what really struck me was this question: who are you when you're no longer defined by your job title? This podcast is designed to be practical. I want to actively help you boost your confidence. For that reason, each episode is accompanied by a short Substack post with a tool or an exercise to help you apply the ideas we've explored in your own life. You can find those by subscribing to In Confidence on Substack, and these posts are free for season 1 only. And if you have a question for me or a comment on one of the episodes, or you just want to say hi, you can email dearinconfidence@gmail.com, or you can WhatsApp 07377 231 025. That's all from me. See you next time.